Hello everyone, my name is Zeph and welcome to the Star Network podcast. Today we have with us a special guest, Celine Lafoucriere, who's the Chief Field Office for the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF. Now she's also the head of the private sector partnerships for Generation Unlimited Nigeria. Hi Celine, it's great to have you here with us. Welcome to the show.
Hi Zeph and hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on the show. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I feel like this conversation, we've been saying we're going to have the episode and now it's finally here.
That's it.
Yes, and you're my first multilateral organization feature. So everyone knows about UNICEF, the work that you do. It's very universal. But the Gen U program, Generation Unlimited, we want to know more about it. Can you give context to what Gen U Nigeria is about?
It's a pleasure to be here, first of all, and it's an honor to be with you, with a UNICEF champion and a champion for Gen U Nigeria. You've been with us now for 2.5 years, and I want to thank you for this because the dedication is important. As you know, Gen U Nigeria, or Generation Unlimited Nigeria in its longer form, is a public-private youth partnership platform, and it relies very much on its members and people like you to drive the agenda and to spread the word. What we do on Gen U is basically, I'm going to make it sound easy. It's not that easy, but basically is to make sure that we have public, private partners on board. We come together, align as to what we do in support of youth. And the big mandate really is to make sure that we provide the support to young people to transition from any kind of learning to any kind of earning. We have partners on Gen U that are development agencies, such as the ILO. We have the World Bank, UNDP, our extended UN family, if you like. Very key, we have the Federal Ministry of Education, as well as the Lagos State Ministry for Youth and Social Development, which is also extremely key. And very interestingly, this partner is a beautiful link with what we do, which is to make sure that we support youth to build their own future, but we also support the youth of tomorrow that will be supporting their own communities. And in Lagos, that ministry combines both social development and youth. So a beautiful partner there. At the very center of it, we have youth. We have what we call the Army of White Hats, the Young People's Action Team, those very driven and dynamic young people. We have 2 per state, and I can explain to you what that is in more detail. But also very key is the private sector partners. There's one thing we have learned through experience in UNICEF is that when supporting youth to build their future, private sector needs to be at the table. Needs to be at the table because they are the ones telling us that they have a lot of vacancies, but they cannot find the skills in the pool of unemployed youth. Youth want to get to those jobs, but they cannot find the skills that those private companies are looking for if they know what they are, because sometimes there is a gap in information there. So really putting them all around one table and aligning all of our mandates and our assets, of course, is the only way UNICEF sees this as the possibility of reaching results at scale for the youth of Nigeria, but also for the overall communities of Nigeria, whereby we have to make sure that the children of today are the thriving youth of tomorrow.
Celine, thank you so much. And I think that has given a lot of context. I like what you said about it's really about helping young people transition from learning to earning. And sometimes a lot of multilateral organizations that are youth-centered, but they never have youth as part of that partnership. So you hear them release policy mandates and it's very private, public sector led. However, young people are not in the discussion. So you can't necessarily build policies and say that it's for young people, but you don't have them saying these are the pain points and this is what we want. Now, this leads me to my next question of what is it that young people actually want? And you can look at the world holistically and say education, healthcare, etc. But what are the pain points and how is Gen U able to work with those young people to find out what it is that they want?
It's a very important question. When Generation Unlimited was created by the previous UNICEF executive director, the pinnacle of her objective was to make sure that youth were driving this train. And really, that's what we do in Genu Niger. They are at the center of everything we do. They're at the center of every debate we have. They're part of the governance mechanism. There is this army of YPATs that I mentioned before. We have 2 YPATs per state. Once again, it's Young People's Action Team. The 2 young people recruited as volunteers working for UNICEF Genu Niger and being our voice in the states. Very important in a country as huge as Nigeria, because ourselves sitting in an office from Ikoyi would have a lot of trouble doing what they help us to do. So they're at the very heart of it. Genu is the very first PPYPP in the world. So public-private youth partnership platform. Nothing is done without youth, and everything is done for youth and the benefit in their communities. What do they want? Well, I've been in this country for 2.5 years, as you know, and I must admit I have rarely seen a country. There's 100 million people in this country that are aged below 32, if my data is correct. So that is a huge pool of young people willing to change their future and the future of the communities in this country. I have rarely seen such, it's not only resilience, it's dynamic pool of young people ready to go out there and kick ass, as my American friends would say, and really change the face of the Nigerian earth, basically. So what do they want? Well, they want the same as every youth in the world. They want to have fun to start with. Whatever they do, they want to make it fun. We're in the digital era. The world has changed. It's not the world that our parents have known and the values we were brought up with, which is the difficulty for them, right? In finding themselves in the values they were brought up with and the world they are heading towards. They have to find that wise balance, because the digital world is exciting, but by the same token, it can be very dangerous if you don't know how to navigate it. So they want to have fun, but they, most of all, want to be the deciders. They want to be the owners of their future. They want to take ownership of their lives. So they are very, very active. They want to acquire skills. They're not like us when we were at university, where we went into one field and then really worked. They are looking at creative, whilst they can be looking at agribusiness as well. They're opening a whole new chapter for all of us, for humanity, frankly, in what can be done and how it can be done. And I'm amazed every day at how much they bring to the table. Of course, they don't have our experience in talking to public sector. They don't have our experience in talking to private sector. But the ideas they can come up with are fantastic. They want us to allow that link to be made with public actors. They have things to say to them. They want us to be able to build networks with the private sector. That's also very important to them, because that's the way they can open doors and shine. So I would say pretty much the same in a very changing environment as everywhere in the world, but with an extraordinary resilience and dynamism in Nigeria. Nigeria is sitting on a pot of gold with this demographic dividend. And it's really a force that we're hoping with Genu we can make a difference for.
Thanks, Celine. And I like the word you use, demographic dividend. I'm actually going to start saying that going forward, because you're correct that young people want to be involved in the conversation. And it's something that you see more, it's more prevalent in the West than in African markets. And I feel that, yes, that narrative is changing. And I like that Genu is able to work with private sectors to ensure that this change is here. I'll give you an example. So my friends and I started an NGO, which you know about, where we sponsor kids to go to school. And we have 2 girls we've worked with, from the Makoko region. And now, then university, we started the sponsorship all the way from primary school to university. And when they come back on break or when there's school is not in session, one of them who's so intelligent and very driven, she says to me, she wants to start making money. I said, okay, what do you want to do? Is it hairdressing? Is it fashion? Should I find a friend who has a business, go and intern? She goes, oh, I've already started. I'm just telling you that it's what I want to do. You can help me with the opportunity. I said, what do you mean you've started? She goes, oh, I decided to make perfume oils and I started this and I also sell it in uni. I said, where are you getting the fragrancing from? She goes, oh, I've just started. I researched it. So it shows you the innovation of young people if they're giving a chance, right? But now my question around the private sector is, they want to do things from a CSR perspective. And sometimes it's very difficult to get the right partners into the conversation. I think GenU has benefited to have the right partners. But how can GenU ensure that you have more private institutions on board? Because the more that you bring them into the mandate of what you're trying to achieve, you're trying to help 20 million young people by, 2030 with skills and livelihood opportunities. So it's like there's a mission to bring more private sector involved, but there's a gap. Sometimes it takes time. They don't understand. Does it align with their CSR? But when they begin to understand that it's for common good and the end game is take on these young people, whether to train, to teach, give them a skill, so that in 2 years, when you're looking for talent, you don't have to look too far. The talent is right in front of you. That leads me to UMA. I like what GenU is doing with UMA. I want you to share more about UMA, because when I went on the website and when I read about it, I was like, this is very interesting. It's a platform that skills young people, gives them challenges. It's almost like the apprentice. It's like, go and start a challenge in your community. Once you're done, we'll give you a certificate. And then you can use that certificate to position in front of a company. And I think that hasn't necessarily been done before. It forces young people to think outside of the box. So can you also share more about UMA, please?
Absolutely. And I like what you said about the way private sector look at the overall endeavor, because it's not only their future employees, but it's also their customers and their future customers. So it is in their best interest to really come to us as UNICEF and work with us. Because at the end of the day, the one and only aim of UNICEF GenU Niger is to deliver results at scale. Alone, we cannot do that. We need all the partners we can get. CSR is one entry point, but we also have a lot of partners who have seen the value of aligning their own business model to our mandates, and that's been providing huge results as well. Now, coming to YOMA, YOMA is the Youth Agency Marketplace, which is basically, let me give you a little bit of background, was born probably about 5 years ago out of a competition that was a techno challenge that was organized by the European Union with support from Foreign Ministry of Germany. To say, very interestingly, they took the angle of what do the youth want. So they gathered a pool of young people from all over and said, what it is that you need today to actually have that successful transition from learning to earning. What they really wanted was, and they didn't come up with this word, but what it meant was an ecosystem, a platform where you would find everything that is accredited, available, accredited and recognized in one marketplace, right? YOMA is an ecosystem. Our partners come in and put in their skills package for free. There is no cost on YOMA unless you want to go into a longer and more elaborate course, and then there's a possibility to follow up with that. But we also do challenges. So we can organize challenges for young people to volunteer in and help us, for example, on climate action, help us on ensuring that they work with us, UNICEF, as our first and foremost mandate to make sure that children's rights are respected and safeguarded. So, for example, we had we organized a nationwide birth registration campaign with our child protection section in UNICEF Nigeria. And we recruited nearly 50,000 young volunteers through what we call Your Report, which is an SMS/digital platform on which we give young people a voice and agency to actually express what they need. Through there, we recruited them using Your Report and YOMA. We trained them with the YPADs. The YPADs acted as coordinators, and they went door to door in the regions, in the states, in the LGAs, equipped with the tablets and with the National Population Commission application to register under fives throughout the country. That pool of 40,000 young volunteers, hugely contributed to the UNICEF mandate to make sure that every child has a right to an identity. They contributed to 8 million under 5 children being registered.
8 million.
8 million. And they, by the same token, got a volunteering certificate from UNICEF, from a renowned agency, to say this young person has not only volunteered with a renowned organization and got some work experience, this type of training, this type of awareness raising, and worked with us to reach that result. But they've also, and that's the virtuous loop, they've also become generational agents of change. So they can find skills, they can find job offers. We have a partner called Joberman, who is a job placement platform. They can find career guidance with other partners, and they can take part in challenges. So within that, there's every week it's updated. Every week there's new opportunities, and I invite every single youth out there to go and key in yoma.world and register today. I compare it to a local LinkedIn, but even more dynamic, much more dynamic. You know, we can have a challenge on a week, in 1 week, to say, let's take climate action. Let's all pick up plastic on the beach and make sure that we take them to recycling factories. Everybody takes part. There's
and they document it. They take pictures during the process.
Absolutely, okay. Absolutely. There's a whole process for that. But what they gain is activism. They build their activism. They build their working experience because they are volunteering for a renowned agency. They're gaining the mind shift.
Correct.
And they're gaining the network.
Correct.
As well as the incentives.
Yeah. No, Celine, thanks so much for the wide context. And I think for me, why I like this mandate of getting young people involved is that once they understand why they need to be part of the change in the future, it's not difficult to convince them. Like you said, it's a mind shift. Once you bring in young people to advocate for things, problems, whether it's, recycling as an initiative or education, by the time they want to get into positions of leadership, be it in the private sector or the public sector, they are definitely then going to go on the virtuous path, because from a young age, caring for other people or social good is at the front line of how they think and how they address things. And I think that's where GenU has gotten it right. And a lot of organizations wait. They don't involve them. I particularly like the birth registration campaign. And when I read on it, I said, this is very interesting, because identity remains such a huge gap, even just in Nigeria, for instance. And that's why you have like the NIMCs telling people, go and get your NIMC card. There's this growing shift that identity calculation and gathering data is important for national planning, whether it's in building houses, whether it's in schools, whether it's in knowing what roads to build. Identity is so critical. So getting young people to say, look, so many people don't have birth registration certificates. Can you go around and knock on people's doors? I'm even thinking in the future when I have kids, those are the type of volunteering activities I want them to be a part of, because they understand. And then it's not a consequence, but the benefit of being part in such an activity is that on a private sector level, on a government level, they're contributing to data gathering so that one day if the government says, oh, we're going to start giving out loans today, or we're going to start giving out mortgages today, we have a pool of numbers that we can say, this is how many people are in this demography, whether it's in Etiosa 1 or versus the Makoko region or wherever. They have those numbers. And it's something that I think is just so phenomenal, like the initiative in itself. So that's good. On YOMA, I like that YOMA solves giving people access to skills. Because what I find in some discussions I've had with young people is that they tend to say, I tried to apply for a job. The job said, where's your work experience? And the young person is thinking, well, I don't have work experience. I'm waiting for you to give me that opportunity so I can show you that I can deliver. And then from there, I build the experience. But YOMA is able to say, you know what? You've not started work yet. Do this challenge, do this activity. Here's the skill, here's the certificate, and then go and apply for a job. And I think a lot of organizations can learn from that. How do we create readiness, like skill people, upskill young people to prepare them for work? Now, this leads me to the 3-pillar strategy, which is your digital learning, your workplace readiness. How has this strategy been, right? And, you've mentioned that, the work is so broad. There's a lot to accomplish. And sometimes it can be very difficult to say, is the impact being felt? But, you have your data, you have your numbers. But how have you been able to get young people across these 3 pillars? And how has that impact been? And what is it that you have found challenging?
There's been some challenges. I will not lie about that. But before I move to that, because you know me, I like to digress a little. Let me just reinforce, because you've hit the nail on the head. Any young person with a decent brain between their ears, as we would say in French, can go and get any skills. Is that what the private sector wants? Is that what UNICEF Genu wants? Not really. When you ask the private sector, they will tell you, what's really missing in Nigeria, because we're talking about Nigeria, in young new recruits, is the soft skills, is the attitude on the job, right? Often that is just not there. Now, it wasn't there for us either when we started, right? But by giving them those volunteering experience, by involving them in that, we're not making them the young, skilled workforce of tomorrow. We're making them the young leaders of tomorrow, because we're equipping them with decision-making, critical thinking, understanding of broad issues that impact their society. So I think that's a win-win. And that's a win for private sector, because they want young people who are a rare pearl. Can you imagine a young person who's actually capable of critically thinking about what the assignment they have been given and being able to give an informed feedback? Fantastic. So I think that's really the beauty of Genu. Coming to your question, the 3-pillar strategy, just for our audience to understand, we work on, very importantly, making sure that Nigeria is connected to the internet. So it's about connectivity, that all schools and training centers are equipped with digital learning. Why? Because during the COVID period, we saw a massive shutdown of schools and therefore a massive shutdown on education. There was no continuity. So we are focusing on this because climate is changing. Wars are happening every day, not in Nigeria, thank God, but we're never totally protected. Adversities are all around. We want to make sure that in the next few years, if there was anything else like COVID again, every child, adolescent and young person could continue their education and their training online. So the first pillar is about connectivity and digital learning. The second pillar is what we call the workplace readiness, where YOMA is sitting. and where partners deliver skills and job opportunities as well as challenges. And the third one is about youth participation with a focus on empowerment. And this is what we've been talking about. This is the volunteering actions, etc. So this is how we built it. Challenges, of course, because when you build a partnership platform, the skills mismatch on the labor market and the support needed for youth is not a new agenda. Let's face it. How many years have we been talking about this? I remember starting my career. I can't say this. I'm going to show my age. I'm going to start showing my age.
Tell us.
No, but I started my career some 24 years ago. And my very first job as a researcher, at the time, it was for the European Union. So not in an African context or not in a developing context. I was already talking about the skills mismatch. So it's not a new debate, right? That means that there's a lot of actors that have already been in that space and that have been working on this. Whether they've been doing it right, whether they've had the successes that Genuine Niger has been having for the last 2.5 years? Question mark, not for me to respond. But what it means is, of course, that when you start building such an endeavor, you're faced with fears, natural fears. Are you trying to step on our turf? Are you trying to take over what we are doing? That's been the main challenge with the partners. I think that's slowly disappearing as they understand that that is not at all the endeavor, but really a genuine attempt to make sure we coordinate, make sure we align, and make sure we don't duplicate our efforts. Because at the end of the day, the one and only aim of Genuine Niger is to deliver results at scale for every single youth on the Nigerian planet. So the more we come together, it can be financial, it doesn't have to be financial. It really is about what are you doing tomorrow where I will be doing somewhere else in a different manner so that I don't duplicate in that same community. In the UN, thankfully, times are changing and we're getting a lot better because our donors are getting a lot better as well at making sure that we're doing the right thing. But, the past has shown that we can do and redo things in the same place.
Very good. And, Celine, I like that you said is it the World Bank that talks about shared prosperity? And I think that's where the gap is, like when you get other partners to see that collaboration is beneficial long term. It's not about we're trying to take a share of what it is you're trying to do, but we're actually here to collaborate and to help you to achieve this single mission.
Brilliant example, because the World Bank is on board of UNICEF Genuine Niger and has been 100% non-financial partner. We have not done work directly with projects from the World Bank, but has been an amazing partner in informing the debates, in listening to youth, in saying we will not partner with anyone anymore that does not have private sector at the table, that does not have all the partners at the table. Very key partner. Incredibly powerful, of course, but also incredibly astute in the way now we should be working together. Yeah. The time where we were working independently, raising our own funds is over. We cannot, in a country like Nigeria, with an estimated over 200 million population, you can, whoever you are, the World Bank, UNICEF, whoever you are, you cannot do it alone.
Correct.
You need to collaborate. So I just wanted to add this because they have been a fantastic partner.
And I'm not surprised, and I'm happy you mentioned it because that's the idea behind collaboration. And I feel that, I'm happy that the conversation is moving in that direction with multilateral organizations. And I think even with private sector, sometimes some things just require partnership. You're trying to achieve something, partner. Or even in the public sector, they want to achieve something, partner with an NGO who's doing the work, partner with a multilateral organization who's doing the work, who is actually an agent on the ground, has spoken to young people, has seen the challenges, and then we can help you to be able to advance your policy. So I feel like there has to be more like stakeholder meetings. And I know, UNICEF Nigeria is very good with that in bringing partners to the table. I think a lot of like public, private sector leaders can learn from that, because sometimes they release policies, but nothing is done. Why isn't anything done? The blockers. Why are there blockers? People don't understand. But if you have more stakeholder meetings where everyone is at one table, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is the benefit. This is where we can rely on your strengths, because you have strength in youth mobilization. You have strength in research work. We don't have that bandwidth. Can we work together on both strengths to get to the end goal? And I think that we'll really see a lot of progress in the development space. So it is exciting to hear about and to see. But let's get a bit more personal, Celine. I like that you mentioned when you started, you were working for the European Union. I didn't know this, but this is good knowledge to have. Now, someone in the audience will listen and say, why did you change that course from working in the EU to decide, I'm going to go to Nigeria, for instance? What was that? Where did that passion come from? Is there something that you noticed, or was it more of like, there's an opportunity, I'm going to go for it? Or was there like a personal experience that made you decide, this is the place that I need to be in to lead and change things around?
I think there's no easy answer to this, because I think career paths are not, and the young people that are listening to us today will probably think, I need to have my career plan and really have a vision. It doesn't work like this. We know that. But what's important, I would say, is having a sense of purpose. That's for sure. If you have one line, and that's your heart line more than your lifeline, your heart line, what actually makes you get up in the morning and actually say, I'm gonna make a difference today, then that, I think, really works. So I would say, and if I had to, whenever I am called to advise the young people, is what's inside you? What makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning? Is it jewelry making? Is it working for a UN development agency? Is it looking after dogs and horses? I don't know. But you know what makes you tick. And that's what you should follow as much as you can, because that's where you will excel, right? Yeah. So my career started in the European Union. I started as a researcher, but I've always worked on skills and labor market development. And I've always worked with young people at heart. That's been my heart line, right? So I worked as a researcher for probably about 8 years. I won't go through every step. But I, for a very personal reason, which I can share here today with our audience, which was that I wanted to have babies. And I needed to be back to in my country to do that, or to have access to the medical care. I switched to being a consultant, always on the same subject, always about skills for youth and labor market employment. And as a consultant for that specific firm, I was asked to evaluate the UNESCO normative instruments for technical vocational education and training. And it's when I finished that assignment that I was offered a post as a regional advisor for skills for youth in the Latin America and Caribbean region. That's how I got into the UN.
Oh, wow.
Now, that is a good illustration of how you can get into the UN by having a sense of purpose. It's not always the case, right? So for young people who are interested in getting experience with the UN, well, GNU Niger and YOMA is your first entry point. Volunteer with us. Come and join the army. We're about to launch the Green Rising.
Yes, I was going to touch on that.
Which is the climate action, which is a program which is, I'm sure, going to have huge impact on climate change. And for that, we're about to build a green army. So come and join. we will be advertising soon for that. So we are hoping that the whole of Nigerian youth will mobilize themselves behind that huge agenda. That's the first entry point. The second, of course, is to come in as a UN volunteer on a longer term. So you have a website that's called the UNV, and then you go there and register your profile, your CV, and then indicate what kind of areas and also geographic areas you would like to be posted in. So that's a good entry point. And of course, there's always the applications that you will find online to the different agencies, funds, and programs.
Awesome. Thanks, Celine. And I'm happy you touched on green rising, because that was my next question. And I know that Genu is starting conversations to mobilize young people. Now, there's been so much conversation about climate change, etc. It's not new, but in Nigeria specifically, the conversation has started. And with COP28, you saw that, there were a lot of Nigerian delegates there. Do you feel that Nigeria is ready to take climate change seriously? Do you think we're starting to understand the importance?
Let me choose a different way to answer that question. I know young Nigerians are.
Good.
And that's all that matters to me, because that's the world they're going to have tomorrow. I see my son, who's 6 years old. He's not Nigerian, but he's already... we went to the yacht club this weekend, and as we walked there, he said, "Mommy, look at the amount of plastic floating on that sea." They are ready. It's a different generation. They are ready because it's their future. There's anxiety there. What are we leaving them? How are they going to handle this? So they're ready to go out there and protect their future. But they're also ready because within UNICEF Genu Niger and with YOMA, we're turning this into an opportunity for them. We're turning this into an opportunity for them to create their own business in climate action, plastic recycling, tree planting. There's many different things you can do. Recently, and I wanted to give you that example because I find it, I was talking about the incredible creativity of Nigerian youth. One of our partners, DSM, a Dutch company, on Genu Niger, has given 3 youth scholarships to study in Canada for their innovative thinking in terms of startups. One of them, who's a medical doctor, created, so basically started his startup. And what he does is, and that you will see the beautiful link to everything we said today, for so many kilos of trash that you bring to me, for me to recycle, I will give you a free medical consultation.
Oh, that's amazing.
You see how climate doesn't have to be the sole focus.
Yeah.
It can create a world of opportunities as to what you can do. You're working for climate, but that's just not an option anymore. It's embedded in everything you do, yet what you do may be medical, it may be engineering, it may be targeted to animals, it can be anything, as long as your climate action is embedded into it. And that's really something that really motivates them, because there is that anxiety about what is my world going to look like tomorrow.
Yeah, no, correct. And I like that you said climate doesn't have to be so directly linked as we think. It could just be me as a business owner. How am I curating an environment that is green? Like curating green practices.
Again, it's the mind shift, right?
Mind shift, yes. And it's so funny because I have a skincare line, which I tend to put on pause. But something that I said I would emulate when I started was I loved how Body Shop and Lush, when you'd buy that skincare products, they tell you bring back 5 empty pots and we're going to give you 1 product free or at a discount. So that's a way of like a green practice. And it then instills in the mind of the consumer this green initiative. I'm not going to throw away plastic. I'm not going to litter. So how can other institutions around be more green? Even just little things like the amount of paper people use, like in the office, is that necessary? Everything is now done online. People are signing things online. So how can we take green practices? I like that you said the young people are ready. Once you give them the opportunity, they're going to run with it.
And they can even go and push at policy level.
Yeah.
Like, let me give you an example that just comes to mind. Both Burundi and Rwanda are countries which have forbidden plastic on their territory.
Oh, I didn't know this.
So as you go, let's imagine that you come from Paris. You go through the duty free, you buy your little presents for the family, and that comes in a plastic bag, right? A very thick one, the one that you can't
sealed,
open.
Correct.
When you land in either Kigali or Bujumbura, that plastic will not enter the country.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
So they make you take it out?
It will not enter the country. You'll take your stuff out, and that plastic is staying in that bin that is going to the recycling plant. That created a lot of jobs, because now what do you do for carrying your shopping? You still need bags, right? You need baskets, you need more climate-friendly ones, but that created a lot of imaginative initiatives, right? So you can either have it from government deciding on a policy and therefore stimulating the creation of new businesses, startups, etc., and therefore jobs, or you can have it from young people actually starting to think, what could replace plastic bags? Shall I start making baskets? Should I start making, I'm not going to know the word, but a lot of young people are working in this business. They
crochet
with potato,
okay,
Irish potato.
Okay.
They're using the fécule in French. I don't know what it is in English, but the
skin,
starchy thing inside it to make what we would call plastic bag, but they're not plastic bag. They're potato starchy bags.
Amazing.
Yeah. So now, by doing that, if Genu Niger managed to stimulate an area like this in the whole green rising climate action thing, we could then influence government to say, all right, well, let's do away with plastic now. It's a cycle. It can come from one way or another.
Yeah, no, it's a cycle. No, saying this is great, and I like the use cases that you shared with us. I think that's something that's very beneficial for the audience. They hear these things. I'm hearing this for the first time about Kigali and Burundi, so this is great. It's been so amazing having you. You've shared about Genu, what it is that you're trying to achieve, the mission of trying to skill young people by 2030 with workplace readiness and livelihood
20 million, Zeph.
Is it 20
in Nigeria?
20 million
by
people
2030,
yes.
We should be at 100 million
by 2030.
You and I, we can do it.
I believe it, that we can. Exactly, with the people listening. But it's so funny because the number sounds huge, but it's very doable, right? The more that you mobilize young people, it's very doable.
Do you remember the numbers for 2 years?
What is the number for 2 years?
7 million impacted in 2 years.
That's been passed. That has been surpassed, correct?
Surpassed. It was supposed to be 5 million.
Yes.
We're at 7 million.
7 million, exactly. So it is doable. And I think getting more people involved, you've shared how people who are interested in working with the UN can participate, go on UNV, submit your CV, volunteering opportunities, etc. It's been really great, Celine, having you. So guys, you've heard from Celine and everything about Genu Niger. You've heard about Yoma, you've heard about Green Rising, you've heard about the countless initiatives and how you yourself can make a difference. Don't forget to follow us at the Star Network Pod on our social media handles. And if you want to learn more about Generation Unlimited, don't forget to follow them. Celine, what's the handle for Generation Unlimited? Do you know it? The Instagram handle?
So can we post them all? Because there's Instagram, there's Facebook. Instagram. What I would say is most important for you guys out there is go onto yoma.world and register in YouReport. YouReport is where the army of young people are, and this is the privileged channel for you to hear about everything that we do on Generation Unlimited, everything that we post on Yoma, and every single opportunity that's there available for you to grab. So YouReport on digital platforms, I think it's youreport.in, and yoma.world. grab the opportunities. We are working for you to be able to grab them now.
Thank you so much, Celine, for being here. And thank you guys for listening. You've learned so much about UNICEF and Generation Unlimited. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.